Hello there, my very good friends. On today's wrestling news, a top star has been pulled from All In and more changes could be coming soon.
Indeed, we've got an update on Cash Wheeler's status for All In.
We've got a report on WWE staff Doom and Gloom.
And there's a major update on Dakota Kai's WWE status.
Yeah, wow, I'm Andy.
I'm Michael.
And this is the news. That sounded quite condescending. I really like Dakota Kai and we'll talk about that later on. But first, let's start with All In. Got the stadium in the background, all of that stuff. So another wrestler has been pulled from All In. Is that the right way of putting it? Has anyone been pulled so far? No, we had Danielson ruled out, obviously, Hater, Pac, people who were injured.
Yeah.
I don't know. Ray Phoenix is probably off the show. This was reported by Fightful Select last night, and it follows some comments from Tony Khan in the pre-show media conference, the conference call thing he does for every show, noting that Phoenix is no longer in the Stadium Stampede match. Fightful reported that while this hasn't been confirmed, they believe the issues are travel or visa related. So if that's the case, there's absolutely nothing you can do about that. Now, Phoenix was due to team with Penta, Best Friends, Orange Cassidy and Eddie Kingston in the Stadium Stampede. It is understood that AEW will explain this on TV. You'd imagine they'll come up with some kind of storyline, but it's not currently clear if they'll just alter the match or get a replacement. You'd imagine, right, and this is just me speculating, you would just get rid of one of the mystery partners for the BCC and make it 5-on-5, right? The simplest thing, because who could you put on that side that would make sense? Maybe like a Tom Ishii. He's aligned with Chaos, eh? Just like Best Friends and Orange Cassidy. Wishful thinking on my behalf. But yeah, there you go. Now, Tony Khan did comment on changes during the media thing gimmick yesterday. He said he expects more changes. I'll read the quote. I expect more changes. They were not changes that I wanted or had planned to make. There will probably be some changes to the card necessitated by things happening in the real world. Stuff that in some cases is nobody's fault, but stuff that is not related to wrestling. And he noted as well that with possible card changes, he doesn't expect them to impact the show's quality, but with some of them, he hasn't even had a week's notice on them. Mm-hmm. So, like, if he has to do that, that's quite understandable. Sounds like we're going to get something perhaps on Dynamite, which is unideal, but I mean, I can't really think of many major AEW pay-per-views, right, that haven't had at least one weird thing that has prompted a big change. You can go all the way back to like John Moxley getting MRSA way back in the day, and they've had to deal with a lot of circumstances like this. At this point, to me, the card looks pretty final, but if he has to change stuff, we got a problem. Yeah,
complete speculation on my part. It's interesting to me that they've done the press conference on the Tuesday before Dynamite rather than the Thursday afterwards, as is tradition. It does make me feel like these comments, because he's mentioned, obviously, it's not just Ray Phoenix, there could be others.
Yeah.
Prepping you for a Dynamite where changes will be made rather than the Dynamite present the changes and then having the press conference explaining them. Like, I wonder if that's a choice. I wonder if currently, he's not revealed any names there, but, the quote doesn't sound promising, does it, in terms of Phoenix just being the only one. We're going to talk about another potential thing in a second that's still a little bit up in the air. I wonder how much this is strategic at this point to try and get, not completely on top of it, but across it a little bit, so that Dynamite tonight, if indeed there are changes to be made that appear on television, they're not going to feel quite as much out of nowhere on a TV show.
And if so, that's a good move, because if the report about Phoenix, for example, hadn't come out, right?
Yeah.
And obviously Fightful and The Observer reported on it as well. If that hadn't come out and it was just suddenly changed, immense backlash.
Injury angle or something.
Yeah. Like, people were like, what the hell are you doing? Now you know.
Yeah.
So it's good to get ahead of these things. He did say as well that he would talk about why people were off the show after the card. So things will become apparent. Sucks that we're not getting people like Danielson on the show. Hater, for me, is the big loss, because it's like, she's the best UK wrestler in AEW for me. I mean, Pac as well, obviously, right? But in terms of her push and stuff, it was all going so great, and it would have been really sick to see her healthy for Wembley and beat up Toni Storm or Hikaru Shida and take the title back. Whatever. We're not going to get that because she's quite badly injured. So, but let us know down in the comment section below what you think about All In, the changes, everything else. Yeah, it's a typical AEW pay-per-view, man. We have to change it's like the original Forbidden Door. We have to change millions of things before we finally get there.
Although not, apparently, in one of the big dream matches at All In, because as of right now, and again, Dynamite and everything could still change, Cash Wheeler is still expected to be at All In. That's the exact word used by Justin Brasso of Sports Illustrated, very reliable typically. He says that he's expected to be at All In London this Sunday. Obviously, all of this is following last Friday's breaking news about the arrest for the aggravated assault with a firearm. This had led to a lot of questions, not just about Wheeler's status within AEW, but just ability to enter the country and all of the sort of the legal issues surrounding that sort of thing. This was followed up with Tony Khan yesterday in the media conference. It was the first question that was asked. It was Phil Strum from Under the Ring who asked if his involvement was in any doubt. Tony Khan said he couldn't comment on the specifics of the Seagull situation, calling it, quote, an inconclusive situation. Yeah. And then the Brasso comments came after the fact. So again, we don't know anything until we know something, but Dynamite could shore that up or rule him out entirely. But this report is something, I think. I do believe that if, with the Young Bucks and FTR being one of the biggest matches, I believe if there was more information, like with the Phoenix one, Tony Khan probably would have suggested it or maybe peppered it in here and then. Then, it's still speculative at this point.
He's not had his passport surrendered or taken off. He can still travel legally.
For anybody that, I don't imagine anybody missed the news, but like from the story as it originally broke, the arrest was, the incident was on the 27th of July.
Yes.
It was a road raid incident where Daniel Cash Wheeler is alleged to have waved a semi-automatic handgun in front of another driver, and then the warrant was issued the very same day. He was charged with a third-degree felony. So all of this only came out on Friday because that was when he was being arraigned, and the Orlando Sentinel had it all. So, there's probably been longer in the background as well to deal with some of this stuff than the 3 or 4 days we've all been aware of it.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Maybe Dynamite will reveal more, but as of right now, as per Justin Brasso, expected to be there.
Well, per the recent reporting, nobody knew. Nobody knew. We talked about this yesterday on the news a little bit. There was a report from House of Wrestling noted that Tony Khan, Dax Harwood, and CM Punk at least were. The belief was that they did not know about this until it kind of came out. Actually, Nick Hausman wrote that some higher ups he spoke to in AEW, when he asked them about it, Nick was informing them that it had happened. Like, they didn't know. So it's a crazy situation. I think from a wrestling standpoint, which is, we're a wrestling channel, that's how we look at these. We can't give you an opinion on the court case, but like from a wrestling standpoint, that match would be the one that a lot of people would point towards as the best thing on the card. Losing it would be a major blow. There you go. There's questions you can raise about should it still happen. Legally, it can still happen, we've learned. It's up for AEW to decide. And that's about the extent I have on this story, really. I don't want to dive into someone's legal problems.
It should be noted as well that they are announced for Dynamite tonight with a segment with the Young Bucks. So, I don't know, maybe it's too easy to suggest that you wouldn't promote that unless you knew you had to make changes. So maybe this is one not to worry about in contrast to the Phoenix ones and other stuff.
Yeah, there we go. Hey, listen. Let's move on to the next one. That was an awkward transition, but we're gonna do it anyway. Let's talk about some WWE stories here. I got a PW Insider Elite backstage report talking about some anxieties among staff at the moment, office staff in WWE. Doom and gloom is the vibe that's apparently going around certain departments and stuff ahead of WWE's acquisition by Endeavor closing, which is expected to happen in late or mid-September. Apparently, WWE employees expect job cuts when the UFC and WWE kind of merge under, what's it called? TKO Holdings Group. Yeah. That new co they're forming. Travel, accounting, and other office roles that aren't directly linked to production or working with wrestlers are anticipated to be those in line for potential cuts. Endeavor expects to complete that purchase soon. It was announced over just after WrestleMania weekend, the 3rd of April, I believe it was. Vince and Ari Emanuel on the TV doing the interviews, all that stuff. You know the score. PW Insider notes that the extent of any job cuts isn't known at this point, but office workers, some of them are quietly looking for new positions ahead of rather than facing redundancy, basically, which is fair. Nick Khan, WWE CEO, back in April did say that he expected some pretty aggressive, his words, cost cutting, and that he would consider a $50 million cut a really, really conservative number. So you can expect, they're good. I mean, they're going to swing the axe by the sounds of things. This is what happens in corporate mergers. And just like to look at this just a little bit. the wrestling fan focus with stuff like this is to worry about the wrestlers, and that's very understandable. Those are the people that you invest in. Those are the people you see on TV. A job cut for someone who works in the office is just as brutal and just as devastating, perhaps even more so in some cases. If people are more reliant on going salary to salary, you'd imagine that the majority of WWE office workers are not on comparable compensation to the people on television. So it could potentially, personally for them, could be an even bigger deal and a sadder situation. So it's what happens in corporate mergers. We've both been worked for companies that have been acquired, and it is an anxiety that goes through your head in situations like this. There probably will be job cuts coming. We will keep you up to date as and when they regrettably happen.
Yeah, I've got tremendous sympathy for the people in the offices at the moment. It's so strange as well because, as you said in the last story, we're a wrestling channel, so typically it'd be wrestling forward stories rather than the back office, the sort of comings and goings. But it's so strange as well that there's kind of like two WWEs at the moment, and it's the reality of a takeover, I guess. There's one WWE which has a load of fan buzz, like awesome WrestleMania sales, like Raws and SmackDowns doing great guns, a tremendous business year, a relatively satisfying creative year for the company. And then on the other side of the coin, you've got this back office side where there's going to be potential massive job losses, a bloodletting based on those Nick Khan figures. This is not the days of the business being in the toilet and the water coolers being taken out in the mid-90s. Those two things just simply aren't connected anymore. It's the opposite, and it's sad that you can have all of this positivity around the business end of the company on one side, but it have this reverse effect almost for the people that you never see, the people that you never hear about. It's a shame.
Yeah, it really is, and immense sympathy for anyone who may end up in that situation. Of course, WWE is a profit revenue generating machine. They're more profitable now than ever before. And part of the way they will look to increase that is by cutting costs.
Yeah.
So that's probably what they're going to do, or Endeavour is going to do.
I would say so. Yeah. On to more slightly positive and on-screen notes. We've got a bit of an update on Dakota Kai. Of course, she made her return at SummerSlam alongside Io Sky and Bayley in the celebrations of Damage Katarl and Io winning the title. But we've got from PWI Insider Elite that she's not yet been cleared to return. It was a very late decision that we reported on at the time that she was flown into SummerSlam to be part of Io's celebrations. And apparently that the report notes that because that wasn't the original plan, she wasn't also due to be back on the road, but plans have since changed. She will now be at, quote, every SmackDown TV taping. That's been borne out from the past 2 weeks, where Damage Katarl have been doing their kind of takeover on the blue brand. But yes, no news of when exactly she'll be good to go yet. There was, of course, the injury that she suffered back in May that ruled her out of television, that moved Bayley and Io into their tag matches together, into a singles feud against one another. That too seems to have been parked now that Dakota is back. But yeah, ultimately she'll be as visible a presence as she always was, if not part of the matches for the time being. It was I think it was an ACL at the time, which has seemingly been a bit of a curse upon half of WWE's women's division this year. But we've seen some of the very lengthy layouts that have, some people have been played, some have been gone on the injured list. So maybe don't set your expectations too high for Dakota Kai's in-ring return just yet. But per this report, expect to see her on television. Yeah, and she can clearly walk around and stuff. So it's seems fine for her to be in the building and to participate in whatever level. I think that's just nice. I think involving people in the processes when they can't wrestle is just a nice thing to do. For the longest time, a pet peeve of mine that WWE would do, they don't do this anymore, so I'm not criticizing them now. But as recently as a few years ago, if someone in a tag team was injured, for example, then that tag team partner would be screwed as well, and they just wouldn't be on TV, and they'd sit out for ages and ages. Now, it's we're getting to the point where it's hey, Dakota, can you fly? Can you travel? Can you do segments and stuff? Cool, come through. That's a nice thing to do, and I'm glad she's able to stay involved in that way, and I'm looking forward to seeing her wrestle again. I've got a fantasy booking for you. You put the women in War Games, and you announce that as Dakota Kai's exciting return, and then you do a redo of the NXT heel turn. You have Bayley leave the mini cage and then turn and slam the door on Dakota Kai's injury and re-injure her all over again. That's a good idea, baby. That's the best WWE War Games match of all time, in my opinion. I agree.
Yeah. Let us know down below what you think. But yeah, that was immaculate. That was the closest War Games match they've done to the original like story-driven violent blueprint. Usually these WWE ones are massive spot fest, right? And that's fine. I like a massive spot fest, but it reminded me of the old ones.
I was there for that, and people were screaming at Dakota. Like the turn was so brutal. People absolutely screaming for Paul Tegan Knox. You could hear her wailing from the cheap seats.
Informed by like the 7,000 knee injuries that poor Tegan Knox has had over the years as well. Let's move on to today's Twitter questions. YouTube community questions. Also, it's not even called Twitter anymore. What am I doing? X. All right.
I like doing that after I've done the X.
X gonna give it to you. Lonely Luna has been on saying, "Morning legends, which WWE superstar do you guys feel should not go over to AEW or any other promotions in general? Take care, and I hope you enjoy watching All In at Wembley." Yeah, this is a twist on the usual format. Who should jump ship? Who shouldn't jump ship? I've got one for you straight away. LA Knight. He's perfect in where he is.
Yeah.
100%.
I'm always sort of interested to see how people thrive or at least survive in the different system. Like we have a wrestling company now in AEW and we have a sports entertainment company, and the differences between the two make it really interesting when people go both ways. At this point, I'm starting to think Cody Rhodes. For the longest time, I kind of just forecast the 2-year deal, the 3-year deal, whatever. Back he bounces, and then to sort of like be able to pick up all the feuds for the world title he couldn't do the last time, to do the dream matches that Tony Khan never got to with him in that first run. I'm not sure I'm with it anymore. Yeah. Like I'm loving WWE Cody too much. The second he came out on the stage at WrestleMania, when he made his return, there was that feeling that everybody had of, this is where he needs to be. I expected, a year and a half on, to feel like, oh well, he's done as much as he can do there. The bloom's off the rose, he's got to go back. I don't think it is. This has felt...
The bloom is nowhere near off the roads.
The bloom is not off the roads. And it's just more magic than I ever imagined it could be. And I don't really want this feeling I get when Cody comes out to suddenly be surrounded by contract talks and all the real life speculation. The real life speculation, in truth, that has clouded much of AEW's out-facing product this year. It's quite nice just being able to buy into Cody the character, living his dream, and wanting to finish the story.
Winning the belt that my dad never got. It's gonna be good.
I kind of love it. I do, earnestly. I'm not.
He's had a perfect run.
Yeah.
The injury's not perfect, obviously, but they made lemonade.
Yeah,
they made lemonade from it. I think that there's some good choices for sure. Like Knight stuck out to me straight away. Listen to how over he is, just doing his silly nonsense. It's great. It's great stuff across the board. Cody's a great shout as well. I wouldn't have said this a few years ago, but I'm going to say Roman Reigns as well, because a few years ago, maybe like 2015, 2016, I thought Roman Reigns was actually the most underrated wrestler on the planet, because he was obviously reviled in his role, but the match quality was insane.
I could give.
Like, absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
And that really wasn't coming through in the appraisals of him enough. Now, I think with the way he's adapted, look, I'm not saying that Roman Reigns isn't great, right? That's not the point at all. But he's adapted, he's completely different wrestler-wise. It's more of a dramatic, big theater, slow movements, fill the screen, WWE theater style of wrestling that I'm not convinced would go over particularly well elsewhere. And he's the biggest star in the world in WWE, so why move?
All right then, gun ahead. Roman Reigns versus Kenny Omega.
I mean, I want to see it.
Would you want to watch it at WrestleMania, or would you want to see it at Grand Slam?
GZP.
There you go. There's the setting. Because I'm all about seeing if the Elite could do it in WWE. I just think that'd be weird to look at. So I would pick WrestleMania as the stage, but I think other people might go,
I think I would pick WrestleMania as well.
Yeah.
Because I think that Kenny would be able to do enough of what makes him Kenny in AEW.
Yes.
Within the Roman format, and it'd be really interesting if Roman went over to AEW and utilised the style of match he currently has in WWE. I'm not convinced it gets over as well in that company.
Might be right. Yeah.
I think he's a great fit for where he is. But let us know down below. What do you think? I'm sure there'll be plenty of choices.
Make us some match graphics.
Yeah, do it. Why not? We love wacky match graphics. Our next one. This is a big question. Comes to us today from Zero Miro, 3255. Zero Romero. Okay. I missed out 2 letters in the middle. I'm sorry, Mr., Mrs. or non-binary pals. Hello there, WhatCulture crew. Has the way you all watch wrestling differed from the way you watched it as a kid? I'm curious because I always have fear of losing my love for wrestling if I decided to make an income out of it. How has your watching habits changed a lot or not that much in terms of watching wrestling as a job? It's a great question. We've kind of answered it a few times before, but I always love bringing it up. Let's get your perspective to start.
not as much as you would think, but then I'm a freak. I've never switched WWE off. There's this thing that people talk about, like going dark for a few years, you know, and it's like, for whatever reason, I just never did. I've got nothing else in my life, evidently. Like, this is dream job stuff, and never let any of our complaints about booking or about the shows we do and don't like sort of ruin the fact that this is a privileged position that we're in. No, I would struggle to fit things in on a commute around a job instead of being able to fit them in around this job and then talk about them. I love it just as much. Sometimes I love it more, and the opportunity that we have to go for this weekend, you know, for example, for All In, like the coverage and the ability to analyse, I think just allows my investment to deepen.
Yeah, no.
Personally.
I think everyone's going to have a different situation when it comes to this. For me, it's definitely, I've had periods of burnout. I've definitely had periods where it's like, oh, wow, I've got to wake up and watch this show. But it's always tempered by, wow, I get to wake up and watch this for a living. It's really nice and stuff. But like, for me, periods of burnout are inevitable because I don't just watch the stuff I watch for work. Like, I want to go and explore the Japanese indies, and I want to go and watch some CMLL. Like, I want to enjoy stuff beyond the scope of this. But that can lead to a situation where you're spending like 12 hours a day watching wrestling, and it's like, sometimes I need to disconnect a little bit personally. So, like, yeah, definitely have like an ebb and flow, and I have to be a bit more diligent and not just write a list of 20 matches I want to watch this weekend. Sometimes I have to go, no, I need to preserve my energy a little bit. I'm going to go for a walk. And maybe if I still feel like doing it, I'll come back. But it's definitely tailored how I consume wrestling in a lot of ways. In terms of like when I came into this job, I was hyper focused on I need to have insight, I need to have specific criticisms and stuff. I want to make people try and view this stuff in a different way. That led to a point where I felt like I personally was getting to the point where I was overanalyzing things, and that was impacting my personal enjoyment to the state that I was just nitpicking things internally and going, oh god, what? The match was great, but he was wearing the wrong colored shoes. That's an extreme example. Over recent years, I've tried to let go of that stuff and tried to engage with it more like I did when I was a kid, and I think that's helped me a lot. But my job isn't as analytical as your job or Michael Sidgwick's job or Wilborn's job, where you have to sit on the podcast for 2 hours a day and talk about it and pick it apart. Mine is I come on the channel, make a few funny noises and go, hey, and move on. So it's a great question, and I think everyone in this building would give you a different answer.
That's the point, isn't it? I think, like, yeah, and this would, you know, go to yourself or anybody that wants to sort of do this for a job or just take it from just being your hobby to something you can try and engage deeper with. Like, you'll find your own feeling with it. You'll find your own level with it where you're content with it. And when that sort of feels like it's tipping one way, just change it.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
it's going to be a completely individual experience. And I think, as you say, everyone will give you a slightly different answer, and that should speak to your own. Don't worry though. Don't be scared of like diving deeper into it to cover, because if you do find that it's like ruining your enjoyment or your experience, if you just pull back a little bit.
Prioritize. Yeah, prioritize to what you want the most, basically. Final question is from Daniel Lopez, who asks, what up, my dudes? Simple question, what is your favorite era of wrestling? Mine's the NXT Black and Gold. Great matches, great story, and females got a chance to shine. What's your favorite era of wrestling? Well, I know what Andrew Pollard's is. Is yours the same?
I think it might be. No, like, I would have honestly said, earnestly gone with like 2014 to 2016 NXT. To go back to the last question, because I think that was almost where I left wrestling behind. I've thought about this a lot over the years. Daniel Bryan's D-push in 2013, WWE can tell you they were telling the story, they weren't. The attempt to get him out of the title picture was almost too much for me. I went to house shows around that time that was just an ugly experience, and NXT hitting at exactly that time basically kept me watching WWE. You know what I should have done? I should have just got a New Japan sooner, but I didn't. It took me a bit longer. So I would say that, but yeah, I think New Generation's gorgeous. I think the work now, I will say, it's not underrated anymore. It is being reappraised thanks to the likes of Punk and FTR and other people lionising Brett, and WWE typically always lionising Shawn Michaels. I think you've got multiple reappraisals of that New Generation. Many, many, many years ago, it was quite tough for someone like me to read criticisms of your Kevin Nashes and your Jeff Jarrett's so regularly. But people have gone back and looked beyond the neon and the bin men and the clowns and seen all the great work. Like a transcendent period where nobody was watching, but if you were rewarded.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've done some content on the New Generation era as well. Like, that's why I mentioned Andrew Pollard, because he's a huge fan too.
Yeah, so good stuff.
Like, it's clearly something
feeds
that people...
into 97 as well. People do talk very fondly about 1997. That kind of doesn't exist without some of the seeds planted in the New Generation.
Some of the screwery going on. And also, when you're not living in the moment, it's much easier to free yourself from the cynicism of little nitpicks that you maybe had back in the day and go, hey, actually, age brings wisdom, all of that stuff, you're removed from it, it's all good. I mean, for me, right, Attitude Era, I have to say that because that's when I was 12, 13 years old. That, for me, when you're in life, that's when your hobbies really become things that you either let go of or things that you take with you for the rest of your life. So I would be completely dishonest for all its flaws if I didn't say the Attitude Era, which was extremely important to me in my development as a wrestling fan. As someone like living through stuff, what is the era I have the most appreciation for in terms of fond memories and stuff? It's New Japan, like maybe 2013 to like 2018.
Yeah.
When I discovered Tomohiro Ishii and Shibata in the G1 Climax, and moving on, in-ring standards through the blooming roof. The rise of Okada, kind of Tanahashi, biggest star in the world, he felt like, having saved the company from the horrors of Inokiism.
Yeah.
For me, New Japan started to go off the boil, well, not off the boil, but wasn't as catered to my taste towards the Bullet Club Civil War stuff. It all got a bit too much American pro wrestling acting-y compared to what I liked that company
kind of formed an American pro wrestling company, didn't it?
It kind of
so
did,
like,
yeah.
that's why that kind of like it was seeded in New Japan for that, wasn't it? Yeah.
So, and to give a bit so I'll give you three perspectives: childhood or adolescence, right? Adulthood, promotion I really love. I'll give you one that I've gone back to watch and fallen in love with retrospectively because I wasn't born. Mid-80s Jim Crockett Promotions, brother. Those World Championship Wrestling shows on the on the WWE Network, I think they started like October 1985, and then they go through. Oh my god, they're so perfect. They're so incredible. Great squash matches. Unbelievable promos. You will watch this show and you will see everyone cutting promos that put almost anyone in modern wrestling to shame. I love it. Match quality week to week, it's not quite there, but that's not why I watch them. So there you go.
That Tony Schiavone spaceship set.
Oh my god.
It's a site of so many classics, isn't it?
So many great things like Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard killing it weekly, Ric Flair obviously, Magnum TA before, his situation, like he felt like the biggest guy in the room. There's just so many of them across Paul Jones's army. They were weird. They were weird, but they were fun. There's all kinds of cool stuff. I am a huge fan of the Boogie Woogie Man as well, man. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
Look up the Boogie Woogie. He's rubbish, but he's amazing. Anyway, you know what else is amazing? This video right here. Thank you for watching that. Thank you for watching today, and we'll see you soon. Bye.